All right, thanks everybody. Welcome to our Office for Global Engagement Scholarship meeting, our info session. We're going to get started by learning first just a bit of the basics about OGE scholarships, and then we'll go directly into each scholarship to learn more about the requirements, what we're looking for, and what makes a successful application. If you have any questions, there will be some time at the end of the info session for Q&A. But if you have something you want to ask in the moment, feel free to type in the chat. I'll be looking over at the chat for any questions that come through. So with that, let's get started. So thank you again all for attending. If you're here, you're probably interested in applying for an OGE scholarship. These are eligible for all University of Utah students. So as long as you have an active unit and you're a student here on campus, you're eligible to apply. You do also have to be participating in the Learning Abroad program, a UAsia campus program, Hinkley Global Internship, or ECHOS Global program within the upcoming year. We'll get into the term shortly. And so in addition to that, we have 4 different awards that we offer through our office: a Student Success Scholarship for $1,500, our Global Discovery Scholarship for up to $7,500, our Financial Needs Scholarship for $3,500, and our Merit Scholarship for $1,500. So in terms of cycles, the next upcoming deadline is October 1st. And so this is the deadline for Scholarship Cycle 2. And so this is the regular deadline for anyone who wants to go abroad for spring 2026, spring break 2026, or calendar year 2026 program. So basically any program that has the start date for starting term of spring is this is the last deadline that they can apply. This is also the early deadline for anyone that would like to go abroad for summer 2026 on a fall 2026 program, a fall break 2026 program, and an academic year 2026-2027 program. So this is the early deadline basically for anyone that wants to have a program with a start term in the summer or fall. And that basically switches for our next deadline. So if you are wanting to, maybe plan ahead, note that we also have a scholarship deadline for Scholarship Cycle 1 on March 1st. That'll be for March 1st, 2026. And that'll then be the regular deadline for summer 26, fall 26, etc. Those programs. And that'll also be the early deadline for spring 2027 programs, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're applying early enough, you'll have multiple chances to apply for funding through our office. There's some important notes. You can only apply once per cycle for each scholarship. So you only can have one application open for each scholarship at a time. So that would mean up to 4 different applications. You need to make sure you're reading and following all the application instructions very carefully. And also check your email quite regularly, as that's where we'll be sending out information, announcements, etc. For recipients and whatnot. And note that if your program is canceled for whatever reason, if something is outside of your control, you will hold your scholarship for 3 terms. So for example, say you're wanting to go abroad for spring 2026 and your program gets canceled, we'll be able to hold that scholarship up until spring 2027. If your program changes or you decide to study abroad a different term, that means like if you decide to change your program or do a different program or go abroad a different term than what you originally planned, that's fine. But you just have to note that you have to study within, you have to use it on a program within the same cycle. That's allowed. So basically that means if you're applying for this upcoming deadline, October 1st, we cannot hold your scholarship for spring 2027 or beyond. We're only able to hold it up until spring 2027. If your program gets canceled, and that's out of your control. If it's something within your control, you have a little less flexibility in terms of those deadlines. So you would have to use it by fall 2026. If you're going to apply for the cycle 1 for March 1st, that cannot be held for summer 2027 or beyond, meaning that it must be used by spring or spring break 2027. All right, so that's a bit of the logistics and just the basic information about how the scholarships are awarded and like the cycling. So let's dig into each of our different scholarships now that we offer. I'm going to start with our first one, our Student Success Scholarship. This is a scholarship in the award amount of $1,500 for all programs. And the selection for this scholarship is made by a campus committee. So we involve various different stakeholders from across different offices, colleges, departments across campus. So to be really involved, it's not just a decision made by one person. These are decisions and committees that involve various groups of people, staff that are wanting to support students going abroad. And so within the selection process, we look at two different things. One will be your personal statement that you write for your program. So we'll touch base on this at the end, since this is a common theme for all of our scholarships. But for all programs that you're applying to, you're going to write about a 400 to 500 word essay talking about the academic, professional, and personal benefits or personal goals for your experience abroad. In addition to that statement, we also will write a student success scholarship reflection essay. So I'm going to go dive a little bit more into the rationale behind this statement and then what the essay is actually looking for. So for this award and for the kind of this idea of the student success scholarship is that we understand that learning abroad programs are unique and immersive experiences that require adapting to new cultures, environments, and academic professional structures. While abroad, you'll be exposed to new beliefs, values, attitudes, and opinions, which can manifest themselves as you build relationships with people from your host country. Thus, successful learning abroad experiences require a variety of traits, such as flexibility, tolerance, openness, and adaptability. So already you can kind of see the rationale for this award is that we are looking for students that understand the uniqueness and the immersiveness and the challenges associated with abroad, and that it's not just like any other campus, like any other semester on campus or any other experience on campus, but there is an additional element because you are abroad that requires additional traits to be successful. And so based on that, we ask you to, in approximately 350 words or a 2,500 character limit, address the following points. What aspect of your learning abroad, Asia Campus, Eccles Global, or Hinckley Global internship program do you expect will be the most challenging for you? And then describe the knowledges, skills, and experiences you will draw on to meet those challenges of learning in or interning abroad. Be sure to tell us about the unique ways in which you will contribute to your program. And so as you kind of read the prompt more closely, you can kind of see that it's divided into two parts between those two bullet points. And so the first bullet point here is asking you to kind of start thinking, identifying aspects of your program that may be the most challenging for you. What are some things on your program that you're not sure or you may think are going to be challenging? And so my recommendation for writing this essay is to think, step one is to think, okay, looking forward, looking into the future, what challenges can I anticipate having to face while abroad? And there's a lot of different ways you can answer this. And we really take a wide view as to what, those challenges might be for you. It could be adapting to a new culture and environment is something that you're, think will be really challenging. Maybe your program's going to be very academically intense. Maybe there's a lot of mandatory activities that you're going to have to take part in. Maybe you're going to be interning abroad, and maybe it'll be a different work culture that you're not used to. Maybe you'll be abroad and you're doing an intensive language program and you're going to be exposed to a new language that you'll have to adapt to. Maybe there's going to be a very large group and there'll be different relationships that you'll have to manage between, your group cohort. Maybe there's some specific challenges located specific to your country and your region that you are anticipating will be difficult. Or even if maybe you're an exchange student and you're going abroad to a completely new university for a semester, maybe there'll be some challenges associated with navigating a new academic culture. All of these are valid and really good starting points, but whatever you decide to use or find, identifies your challenge, you want to make sure that it's personal to you and that you actually anticipate it being an issue on your program. So really think when you're writing this essay, take some time to brainstorm different facets of your program and think about which things may be more difficult for you, or at least present some challenges that you may not be as used to. So for step two, once you kind of have those challenges in mind, think about similar challenges you may have overcome in the past few years. So start thinking about kind of identify similar things that you may have overcome previously. And think about, okay, how did I, what did I learn about myself through that process? What skills did I develop from that experience that I've had previously that will help me face these challenges and succeed while I'm learning abroad? And again, there's a lot of different examples, just some, maybe, for example, maybe you're transferring to the U, maybe you're a transfer student and this is your first semester. You've already had to adapt, to a new academic culture and a completely new group of students. That's a perfect example. Another one could be maybe you've had the previous experience working with international colleagues where you've had to adapt to different cultural norms, ambiguity, etc. Maybe you've taken some really intensive coursework previously that will help prepare you for a similarly intensive experience abroad. Maybe you've conducted independent research. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach this essay. And again, we just want to make sure that whatever you're writing about, that it's really personal to you and that it's an experience that you've had that you really identify as a way that'll help you succeed abroad. So whatever you're doing, make sure that it's personal to you, that you're providing concrete examples. And think about, how your own background and experiences may be impacting your experience abroad as well. So I'm going to move on next to our merit scholarship. So our merit scholarship is a little different than our student success scholarship. It's a similar award amount of 1,500, and it's also made by a selection of a on-campus committee. And we look at your personal statement, that 400, 500 word statement we were talking about. But instead of writing an essay, you're actually going to upload a resume. And so in that resume, they're going to want to provide various evidence of merit related to your program. So that can be academic merit, professional merit, volunteering, leadership. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach it. It's really important that you actually touch on multiple, because we do take a much more holistic view. This is not just based on academic merit, but we take a wide view of the various different things that you're doing on and off campus to assess the scholarship application. So I would recommend, organizing your resume to the following way. Like, obviously talk about your work experience. You also want to include examples of leadership experience you've had, whether that was a paid opportunity, unpaid, through an organization, campus, things like that. Any volunteer experiences that you may have had, any achievements and awards that you've received, such as personal, professional, and academic. And really the key thing is that whatever you're listing on your resume, you really want to make sure that you're drawing it back to how this item, this thing on your resume is relevant to your learning abroad program and your overall experience abroad. So I would recommend not including high school experience unless it's directly relevant to your program. So you were, you're going on a Spanish immersion program for the summer, and you include that you were, maybe like the captain of your basketball team in high school, for example. I would recommend avoiding that unless you can somehow make the case how it's directly relevant to your experience abroad. So really focus on your college merit achievements. And there's also a really great resource here on campus. U Career Services has a lot of resume resources on their website. So if you scan this QR code, it will take you directly there. But I highly recommend that when you're applying for this award, you take advantage of those resources they offer. If you've never written a resume before, and many times the first time the students are writing a resume being for the scholarship application, they have a resume worksheet that you can look at to start getting an idea of what resume might look like. They also have a lot of tips that can help your resume stand out, things to include. They even have samples of resumes if you're really lost and really not sure where to even get started. They also have some great opportunities to help you skill build your resume. So giving you ideas of how to really center and focus those skills. So kind of like those skills that are very, we were talking about this in the Student Success Scholarship, but those skills and knowledge and experiences that are beneficial to you going abroad, those are also some of those skills that we would want to see come through on your resume. And they even have peer coach resume review. So if you, never had anyone review your resume before, I would highly recommend sending your resume over to this email right here. They have peer coaches that can help review your resume and then take a look and give you some really constructive feedback to help you improve your essay and make yourself stand out even more. move on next to our financial scholarship. So this scholarship is for students with high financial need, as the name suggests, but we understand that financial need for learning abroad kind of presents itself differently than how FAFSA typically might evaluate financial need. And so for that reason, we don't require your FAFSA to be filled out or submitted for this award because we understand that, the FAFSA only highlights or tells us a little bit about your level of financial need and does not paint the full picture, especially considering a program with additional costs, such as learning abroad and on a much shortened timeline than, 4 years, for a university education. And so for this award, it is a higher award, reflecting that it's for financial needs. So it is 3,500. And really it is designed for students with this demonstrate financial need who may not be able to participate in a learning abroad program otherwise. So some things that we take into consideration are your statement of purpose, that personal statement, that the 400, 500 word essay that we keep talking about. And then also some additional statements, a financial plan essay, and then a financial circumstance essay. These are quite short, 1,000 characters max for the first one, 1,500 characters max. So we really want you to keep it short and sweet and really get to the point in both of these essays. So for the first essay, this is the financial plan essay. Really, we want you to briefly outline your plan to finance your program. So let us know, importantly, what personal finances are you already relying on? What support from your family are you planning on receiving to help you participate in this program? What scholarships are you already receiving to participate in this program? Any forms of financial aid, etc. Really, this financial plan is to let us know if you were to not receive the OG scholarship and don't include this scholarship or any of these scholarships in your financial plan. This helps us understand your current financial plan and picture for your semester abroad. And so you can either write out your plan, you can create an itemized list, however you think is best fit for you and your program. Whatever you want to do, but just make sure that for whichever kind of way you want to go about this, that you are including both your billable and non-billable program costs and how any existing scholarship loans and other forms of financial aid and assistance will be applied. So say, maybe you have this plan to go abroad and you're planning to cover, tuition with loans, but you're going to be using, savings or, your 529 or something like that for your flights. Detail your plan of how you plan to cover each expense associated with your learning abroad program or your including Ethos Global UAsia campus programs. Don't, in this essay, don't use any vague assertions that your program, is expensive, but you're not telling us how much. Don't include any OGE scholarships in your award, and make sure that you're including specific dollar amounts when you're listing out your billable and non-billable program costs. The more information, the more specific information you can provide, the better chances are of receiving the scholarship. It's really important too that you don't include any of our scholarships in your award amount because that helps us understand, okay, if this student were to receive an OG scholarship, that would help cover, instead of them having to take out money from their savings or take out a loan, we could then see how our award would help cover some of those costs and reduce that debt burden to you. So in addition to the financial plan essay, we also have the financial circumstances essay. This is a little longer, but it's still pretty short and sweet. About 250 words or so, or 1,500 characters. We want to include any circumstances that are relevant to your financial need, as well as any other criteria that you'd like to share. So rather than being your financial plan, this is where you can kind of give us some more background on your existing financial status and any criterions that will help us understand the level of financial need better than the FAFSA could. So, when we look at your FAFSA, the only information we get is low, medium, or high, or if you don't file FAFSA, no information. We don't take that into account, but obviously just having the one word doesn't really give us a whole lot of insight into your level of need, especially as it relates to a learning abroad program. So this essay really is to provide us more insight, to tell us more about your circumstances that are affecting your ability to participate in a learning abroad program because of financial reasons. And so whatever your circumstances are, you really want to make sure that you're including evidence of any of those recent financial hardships, any lack of familial support that you might receive, financial dependence, et cetera. These are all things that FAFSA doesn't always take into account, but that can drastically impact your ability to participate in a learning abroad program. So make sure that you are, including that evidence, and be as specific as possible. We don't want necessarily a story or a narrative in this essay. We don't need you to craft, like recount all your difficulties throughout your life, your family, and that you have faced. We really want to know very specific, very straight to the point, what financial hardships you are facing right now, currently, that are impacting your ability to study abroad. So always make sure that you're providing evidence. It should be really a fact-forward essay rather than kind of like a struggle essay that kind of recounts various financial difficulties that you've had. So the more evidence, direct evidence that you can provide in this essay, the better. Again, do not use any kind of vague assertions with financial needs. So just saying you have a financial need is not going to meet the requirements for the rubric for this essay. Again, don't leave out any important details. If there's something that's really impacting your financial circumstances, include it. Don't be afraid to not include it. Whether that might be, a medical issue, there's been a recent accident or a family emergency, things like that. We want to know, again, straight to the point, what that is, and that'll help us better understand the context of your financial circumstances. And of course, if there's any associated, for example, specific dollar amounts with any of the financial burdens you're currently facing, don't forget to include those as well. All right. The last scholarship I'm going to talk about today is our Authors Global Engagement Discovery Scholarship. And so this is our largest award amount. It is a varying award amount. It will depend on your program, how many people have applied that cycle. But this award can award up to $7,500 in funding. We say that because sometimes a student may be participating in a short-term program that doesn't cost as much, and so we're not going to over-award them. But this scholarship is intended to help cover a majority of a student's costs, or at least a big chunk of that student's costs for their experience abroad. Because this is such a high award amount, we are able to award only a few per cycle, about 3 to 4 awards per cycle, and thus it is quite competitive. And so it is important to plan ahead for this scholarship and think about applying multiple times because, again, it is by its nature and by the numbers quite competitive because obviously everyone wants to get a big chunk of funding to help cover those awards, the cost of their program. The reason why it's also capped at 7,500 is because students cannot receive more than 7,500 in scholarships awarded from our Learning Abroad office. So that is the upper cap that we have set. And so that also means that you can also receive multiple scholarships from our office. So you can get the financial need and the student success and the merit. You are able to stack awards, but you cannot in total receive more than 7,500 from our office in funding. And so for this scholarship specifically, because it is more competitive, there is some additional steps involved. And so, you will submit the personal statement, that 400, 500 word essay we keep talking about. There also will be a specific Global Discovery Scholarship Reflection essay that you will write. And then you will select finalists, who will then be invited to an in-person interview before decisions are made. All right, so for this scholarship, we've kind of reworded and reworked our rationale behind this. And so I'm going to read that to you to help give you a better understanding of kind of like the reasoning behind the scholarship and what we're looking for in a candidate. So Global Discovery Scholars are uniquely prepared to engage with their host countries, communities, and environments while abroad. They represent the University of Utah while pursuing their distinct academic, professional, and personal ambitions in the global context. Due to barriers, Global Discoveries may have little to no previous study or internship abroad experience, but demonstrate the capacity to uniquely benefit from their experience abroad. Upon return, global discovery scholars integrate the unique impact of their experience abroad into various aspects of their academic and professional career. So already you can kind of see we are looking for really well-rounded candidates that kind of have a lot of different things in place. They have, a program that works for them. They have an idea of how they want their academic program abroad to impact their experience back when they come home. And they also have somewhat of a idea of how, being abroad is going to really impact them uniquely in their academic, professional, and personal ambitions. And so with that, we've developed kind of 3 bullet points that you would want to address in your Global Discovery Scholarship essay. And so this is a lot because there's more to cover. There's a bit longer of an essay. It's about 500 words or so, a limit of 3,500 characters. And in this essay, you'll want to address first, what is your global discovery? How will your learning abroad experience allow you to uniquely engage with your host cultures and foster meaningful interactions with people and cultures different from your own? And after your program has concluded, how will your experience abroad impact your academic journey after you and your professional career after graduation? And so this can be, there's a lot to cover. And so I'm going to break it down kind of piece by piece and bullet by bullet. And so primarily, the question, what is your global discovery, is vague, but it is vague for a reason because this will really vary from person to person. Everyone is going to approach this question and this bullet point from their own perspective because they have their own experiences that are shaping what they might want to do or how they've identified what their experience abroad will help them do. And so when you're thinking about what is your global discovery, you kind of want to think, okay, well, first of all, what does global discovery mean to you specifically? Global discovery in essence is how will this experience abroad help you internationalize your studies and your career? So think about whether you're doing a week-long program, a semester-long program, a summer-long program, academic year program, whatever program length, program type you're doing, wherever you're going abroad. How will this specific program help you really internationalize and grow and expand your academic studies and your professional career beyond the boundaries of, your home state, your home country, et cetera, et cetera. You also want to think about, how does your program uniquely allow you to expand upon those areas of studies and interests? Start thinking about what new points of view might you encounter while abroad that may broaden your understanding or even challenge your understanding of a certain subject or field or multiple fields that you're interested in. And so importantly, you want to think about, we're not looking for 100% accuracy, but we're looking for students that have the foresight, basically, that can paint a picture and have a general understanding of how their experience abroad will impact them. And so we understand that you may have certain anticipations for your experience abroad, but we also understand that those will change while you're on the ground. So we're not going to come back to your essay once you return and say, oh, this wasn't right. Your experiences change, or your ideas about what your global discovery might change. We're not looking for 100% accuracy. We're looking for foresight. So we really want you to think ahead and start thinking critically and crucially about these topics. In addition to that, we also want you to think again about some of those engaging and meaningful experiences and interactions you will be having during your program with your host culture. And so you want to start thinking too about what are some of those community engagement opportunities that are integrated into your program already? What might you be seeking to do outside of your program to help build those meaningful interactions? We want to see how are you going to not just, kind of float and kind of like glide along, but we really want to know how are you going to really deeply and meaningfully engage with your host culture in a way that cannot be done, here on campus. And that we want to know how you're really going to be taking advantage of your time abroad to really deeply and meaningfully engage with your host community. And so sometimes these things, like I said, are already planned as part of your program. Maybe you already are going to be doing some different community engagement opportunities. Maybe you will be staying with a host family, for example, and you'll be living, with locals, local family. There's a lot of things that may already be included in your program that you can kind of use as examples. Of course, some programs may offer more than others, and so you also can think about things you can do yourself outside of your program or outside of your structured program in order to develop those community engagement opportunities and to have those meaningful interactions. Basically, we want to see that you're not just going to stay in your kind of like US cohort, but you're actually going to get out of your, your comfort zone and interact with your host culture, your host, and the people at part of your host culture that are receiving you and hosting you. As part of that as well, we want to know how might local perspectives help shape your academic and professional growth. So as part of these meaningful interactions that you're having, you also want to think about, okay, in the context of my academic professional goals, how might, these interactions benefit me academically and professionally, and how might local knowledge or local understanding of these certain issues challenge, benefit, broaden your understanding of your subject. And again, in this essay, we're not looking for 100% accuracy. We're not looking for you to, predict the future. But again, we just want you to have some foresight. And we understand that your experiences and plans, of course, will change while abroad. So again, it's not 100% accuracy. We're not asking you to predict the future. Yeah. We just want you to be thinking about the ways that you are going to, meaningful interact with your community, because the more ideas and plans you have before you go, that'll be a lot easier for you to put in motion and adapt rather than not really having any idea of what you'll be doing while abroad. And then you miss out on those opportunities because you didn't plan ahead. And then finally, the third part that you want to address is talking about your academic journey at BU and the professional opportunities that this experience will help provide you with after graduation. So of course, you want to think short-term, medium-term for your academic impacts. So, you want to know how might you want to incorporate your global discovery that you've made once you're back on campus. So whether you're going to bring that insights to your classroom, whether you might bring it back other ways through research, through internships that you'll have here at the U, a lot of different ways that you can incorporate this. But we want to know what are some ways that you're thinking of that you can incorporate your experiences abroad and this knowledge you've gained back to campus, because it really is, it's not just an investment in you, but it's also the scholarship is an investment in you coming back and being able to spread that knowledge with your wider community. And so we really want to see how you are planning to incorporate your experience abroad back into your academic studies once you return. And so really you shouldn't be thinking of your experience abroad as kind of like this one-off experience that ends once your program ends. But really we want to, the most successful candidates will be able to show how their experience abroad is a stepping stone into the next phase of their academic and even professional career. So start thinking about the ways in which your experience abroad is going to impact you, not just you personally, but ways that you can then bring that back to your academic community here at the U, ways that will impact your academics, your classrooms, clubs, all these things that you're participated in already, how that will help once you come back to campus. You also want to think about, longer term, what are some of those impacts for you professionally that this experience will provide to you after, your program ends. So you really want to think about those career opportunities that may become available to you because of this experience you've had abroad, maybe some new opportunities. And again, we know that, your future academic professional career is not set in stone. So we don't want, again, we're not going to come back to your essay, 5 years down the line and say, oh, you didn't end up working for this company, we're going to revoke your award. That's not how it works. We just want you to be thinking, have the foresight to think, okay, here are actually some great opportunities that because of this international experience I've had, I might be a more eligible candidate, or I might have more the necessary skills and background to actually apply for a job like this or start working in a field like this. So again, the more specific you can be with those academic and professional impacts after graduation, and really paint the picture of how this experience abroad and this program abroad is kind of like the jumping stone, or the jumping off point for what comes next after your experience abroad and your, the next phase in your life, the more successful you'll be. In addition to that, there are some common cliches I would recommend avoiding in any of the essays, especially in the Global Discovery Scholarship essay. You really want to make sure that you are centering the focus around you. So always make sure that whatever you're writing about, you are keeping the essays focused on you. That's not to say you can't bring in other people or other experiences, but you want to make sure to really have that narrative arc of relating it back to you and your own academic professional journey and having those meaningful experiences abroad. And so whatever you're bringing up, just make sure that you are keeping in mind that you are portraying how these events shaped you as a person and what new insight or reflection does this information provide about you. We also don't want to see laundry lists in this essay, so you don't need to tell us information we already know, like your major, your GPA, your program that you're doing, etc. These are things that are already as part of your application and that reviewers will be reading, so you don't need to relist that in your essay. You also don't want to just give like a surface level list of activities and interests you're interested in, any background information, things like that. You don't want to just tell us, but show us. You want to make sure that whatever information you're bringing is really adding to that compelling narrative about how this program, is going to help, fuel your global discovery, really impact your academic professional career. We also don't want to see non-committal or passive language. So rather than saying things like if, would, could, should, those are things that demonstrate passiveness or uncertainty. And even though, your program may be uncertain, your participation in it may be uncertain, and I totally understand, with finances, a lot of things that can impact your participation while you're writing these essays. Write your essays as if you're already going on the program for certain. That'll help your writing come across more convincing and will increase your chances of being awarded and will show that you're really dedicated to your program. And so again, avoiding language like that can help you portray yourself as more willing to, reach for these opportunities. And also, I would recommend avoiding phrases like I was blessed, or I was grateful to have the opportunity. Things like that also kind of demonstrate you're not taking your own agency, you're not taking an active role in your accomplishments. And so if you have an accomplishment, these essays are the space to have a humble brag about yourself. We want you to understand and recognize the accomplishment and amazing things that you have done that are going to help you while abroad. So don't ever cast doubt upon the reader by using phrases like these. Really want you to take ownership of your own accomplishments and agencies and really write your essays as if you're already, going abroad for certain. All right. Another resource I will recommend before you submit your application, always go to the Writing Center on campus. They are a phenomenal resource that can help you review the prompts and understand and look at your essays and help identify where your essays are meeting the needs of the prompt and where they might be more room for improvement or can help improve clarity, things like that. They have individual consultations available with peer tutors, and it's a free service. So there's really no reason not to take advantage of it. They are located on the second floor of the Marriott Library in room 2701, and you have plenty of time to meet with them before the deadline of October 1st. All right, that brings me to the personal statement. So we've been talking about this a lot. This is a 400 to 500 word essay that you will be writing as part of your application. And so this essay really kind of gets to the bottom of your academic, professional, and personal goals and how this program aligns with it. And so really you want to, you've already probably written this or you will be writing this for your program already, but there are some ways that we recommend to start thinking about this statement. Importantly, you want to be creative when you're writing your personal statement. The reviewers be reviewing a lot of different personal statements and they do become monotonous. So always make sure that you're keeping it individual to you and kind of really relevant to yourself. And there are some very creative ways that you can start your personal statements. Finding a hook to catch the reader's attention immediately is a great way to do so. So whether that you start with a story, a quote, information about you, there's a lot of different ways you can approach this. So rather than starting with a laundry list of things like saying your name, your sophomore, what your major is, information we already know about you, a really great way might be starting to think about, starting halfway through a mid-story, for example. As her breath became faster and faster, I realized I had to act quickly. She was suffering from an intense panic attack that prevented her from talking or breathing. This right away captures the attention of the reader and keeps them engaged and wanting to know how this story relates to your personal, academic, and professional goals while abroad. You also want to make sure that whatever evident claims you're making in your personal statement, you are backing up with evidence. So you can't just say something like, I will learn vital lessons that will contribute to my future success. First of all, anybody can say that in any program. That is like the most generic and unspecific thing that you can say. And so think about ways, review your essays. If you find really generic or unspecific language, think about ways that you can help make that more applicable to you specifically. What do those vital lessons look like for you? What are some of those, what does your future success look like? How is this program going to contribute to your future success? And maybe you've started to think about it. Maybe, for example, I plan to study medical practices that will provide hands-on experience to prepare me for graduate school. But even then, you still can go into more in detail. What are those medical practices that you might be learning while abroad? What does your hands-on experience look like while abroad? What does graduate school look like for you? And so a great example here is from our Wilderness Medicine in the Alps program. This is an example from a student. They said, I will study under medical professionals from Austria, France, and Germany, who are experts in wilderness medicine. Under their guidance, I will, for the first time, learn how to treat medical problems and infectious disease, study the treatment of altitude sickness, and explore the proper techniques for transporting an injured patient. Working with people from a different culture, gaining hands-on experience, and earning the wilderness medicine certificate will all set me up for success as an emergency medicine physician. So this student really goes into detail about how this program, what those vital lessons are, what will they be learning abroad, how does it impact them in that moment and also in the future for their future success as an emergency medicine physician. And so the more specific you can be, the better. Also, again, make sure that you're showing us why this program is the right fit for you. Don't just tell us this program is perfect for you. Show us why. What is this program specifically incorporating that is making this program the best fit for you at this time? So if you're, for example, doing an intensive language program, you can't just say something like, I have a passion for foreign language and I can't wait to get out of my comfort zone and immerse myself. Because again, that is very generalized. It's very unspecific, and anyone doing a program abroad probably can say the same thing if they're learning a language abroad. And so we really want you to give us the specifics about why this program really is perfect for you to meet your academic, professional, and personal goals. So this is an example from a student that participated in our intensive Spanish language, and it will be the Spain program. And they said, Spanish has been a passion of mine since I took my first Spanish class in middle school. Since freshman year, I've been able to take Spanish 2020 and have started taking 3,000 level courses. I've also been an active member in the Spanish club and have completed 20 hours of service work with the Spanish speaking community in Salt Lake City. While my Spanish has improved a lot, I haven't yet reached my goal of becoming fluent in the language. The focus on language immersion on the intensive Spanish and Oviedo program is exactly what I need to move to the next level. One of the reasons I chose the program is the opportunity to live in a small town where most people don't speak English. All the other summer intensive programs are in larger touristic cities where it will be easy to get by with English. Finally, I am also planning to live with a host family so that I will be able to use my Spanish in and out of the classroom. So this example really does a good job of showing the students' trajectory up until this point. They kind of show what they've done already in order to improve their Spanish skills, but also that they've kind of hit a roadblock, without going abroad and actually immersing themselves, but not going to meet their goal of becoming fluent. And so that they really give us the perfect trajectory to show, okay, now I'm applying for the intensive language program. And this is a perfect program for me because of these reasons. This is in a small city where I'll have more opportunities to use my Spanish. all over the host family, et cetera, et cetera. And so whatever program you're doing, you want to make sure that you are showing us how this program is a perfect fit for you. Don't just tell us that this program is perfect for you. Show us how this program meets your professional, academic, and personal goals you have. All right, so always make sure that in your personal statement, you're addressing all parts of the prompt. That includes academic, professional, and personal. Some students, really excel at writing about the professional impacts, their internship abroad, but forget to talk about the academics. Some may really focus only on the academics and don't think about how this may have a broader professional impact on them, et cetera, et cetera. And also make sure that you're being specific. So read over your essays, look at your essays. If there's any time that you can substitute, your program, your country for another country, and your essay still makes sense, you're probably not being specific enough. So you want to make sure that whatever information you're including in your essay cannot be replaced or cannot be met by any other, program, country, et cetera, et cetera. A final note that I have before we open it up for questions, just a quick note on artificial intelligence. I don't have the resources necessarily to review each essay for usage. But what I will say is that you can tell your story much better than ChatGPT or any AI kind of resource can. While we don't explicitly prohibit it, relying on these technologies actually might impact you negatively rather than positively, especially if you're really relying on it to write your entire essay. Oftentimes we've seen with AI essays that they repeat the prompt heavily, or they use a lot of generic words. There's a lot of vague and unspecific language used in a lot of these AI produced essays. And importantly, also we lose your own personal voice. We don't get a sense of who you are as a student, as a person. And so I also think that's just a personal loss when it comes to these essays. We don't really get to see you shine through. I will say AI can actually be a great tool. Once you've written your essay and you might be short on time and you don't have time to meet with anybody else, using AI to help proofread your essay or help make your ideas more clear is an acceptable use. And I think it's actually a great idea to help you clarify your writing. But do not rely on AI to write your entire essay because it's going to likely have a negative impact on your final score and your how the rubric will be implemented. All right, so that covers our OG scholarships. I'm also going to quickly highlight there's a lot of other scholarship opportunities through other institutions and other sources, such as foreign language and area studies scholarships for students studying foreign language, Boren Scholarship, the Gilman Scholarship. I will touch base on that as a second, but if you're a Pell Grant recipient, you definitely should apply to the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship, the Freeman Asia Award, Phi Kappa Phi, Fund for Education Abroad. There's also a lot of affiliate scholarships if you're doing an affiliate program through our office. And there's also other departmental scholarships from other departments on campus, such as, the departments of world cultures, departments of park, recs, and tourism, Middle East studies, international studies, even global public health offer scholarships. So there is a lot of funding available. So check out our scholarships page on Learning Abroad at utah.edu, and you'll be able to see not just our scholarships, but the whole kind of database of funds and funding that we're aware of that can help you fund your experience abroad. I'm going to touch base real quick on the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship. If you are a Pell Grant recipient, so check your FAFSA status. But if you receive the Pell Grant, that might be for Utah Scholarship, et cetera, but you just have to be receiving the Pell Grant. You would be eligible for this national scholarship, which is a really amazing opportunity. It's up to $5,000 in funding from the U.S. federal government, from the State Department. And you might even actually be able to receive more funding if you're studying a critical new language abroad, if you're studying STEM subjects abroad as well. They have similar application deadlines in October and March, and I'd recommend going to their website to learn more information about that and applying. And in addition to that, the Office for Global Engagement has developed another scholarship to help support our Gilman Scholars. And so basically, if you apply to the Gilman Scholarship, you would suddenly become eligible for this award as well. And if you're not selected by the national committees, by the State Department that awards these scholarships, we will review your scholarship for additional funding, your application for Gilman for additional funding through our office. All right. I finally reached the end. If you do have questions, feel free to turn on your mics. You can also reach out to me via email, and I'm happy to answer those questions as well. All right, if there's no other questions, I'm going to